Hey, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Wednesday, October 13th, studentloanjustice.org live stream. My name is Alan Collins. I'm the founder of studentloanjustice.org. We are the oldest, largest, and in many ways only true citizens group fighting for student loan justice. We've been around since 2005. We've featured top story on 60 Minutes and the Wall Street Journal and many other places. So, I'm going to keep it fairly short tonight, folks. We've got a lot going on at the moment. If you have any questions or comments, throw them out. And if I can see them, I will definitely respond to them if I can see them. So, probably the most important thing I need to tell you all about is that tomorrow we are tomorrow we're going to be screening the first episode of our documentary series at the University of Southern California Film School / Kasdan Institute. So thanks to Lisa Ansel in Los Angeles for hooking this up for us. This is also affiliated with the Hebrew Union College at University of Southern California. So thanks again, Lisa. This is happening tomorrow, 7:30 p.m. Pacific Coast time. So it's going to be pretty late on the East Coast. But if you look down, you can see where you can register for free, and it will be a cool thing. And you'll get to see the first episode of our film for free. And interestingly, Senator Chuck Schumer will be giving the opening remarks, as will USC President Carol Fultz. So we're thrilled about that. USC is actually my alma mater, so it will be interesting to head back there, even if only virtually. So check that out, and that will be super cool. Right now, we're asking people, if you happen to be an artist or have artistic urgings or whatever, artistic ambitions, jump onto our AV club. We want to compile a bunch of like spooky, scary videos with the theme of, well, obviously student loans, but like the whole scared to debt thing, which is the name of our documentary series. So if you want to make some fun videos, people seem to like that stuff. They really seem to travel pretty well. Check out our AV club, and again, I will paste the link to that below. Man, I could probably spend an hour just doing announcements. There's like so much going on nowadays. But here's maybe the long and the short of it. We're fighting for two things. The return of bankruptcy protections to student loans. That's probably the most important as a practical matter, it turns out. We're also fighting for student loan cancellation. So, the founding fathers called for uniform bankruptcy laws ahead of the power to raise an army and declare war in the Constitution. Taking this away, stripping these bankruptcy protections uniquely from student loans, has directly led to where we're at now with runaway inflation and the price of college, a default rate that even before the pandemic was probably headed for something like 70-75%. That's obviously only higher now due to this pandemic. It's a catastrophically failed lending system. So we've got a great bill in the Senate right now, S 2598, and that will return bankruptcy protections to all federal student loans. So both FFELP, the older style loans, Perkins loans, and the vast majority being directly owned direct loans. So if you have student loans, chances are you have federal student loans. This bill is great, S 2598. We have to do everything we can do to push it. Right now, the most important thing anybody can be doing is getting some Republican senators to co-sponsor the bill. Right now, believe it or not, we've got more Republicans than Democrats on the bill. So we've got John Cornyn out of Texas, Josh Hawley in Missouri. And we are that really augurs very well, because now we're a nonpartisan group, but I have to be honest and tell you that historically, Republicans have tended to oppose us, certainly on the bankruptcy issue, and even now today, certainly on the loan cancellation issue. But, Bankruptcy and loan cancellation are tied together, folks, and this is probably the most important thing that I'll say to you tonight. Um, in the current political climate, I don't think we will see any meaningful loan cancellation unless and until we get the threat of bankruptcy returned to us. Nobody wants to file for bankruptcy. It's a terrible thing to have to do. But the founding fathers felt it was so important, they called for it in the Constitution, ahead of the power to declare war and raise an army, as I think I just said. So it's the threat of bankruptcy that is so important. If we have the threat of bankruptcy back on our side, then people like, let's say Joe Biden, for example, he will all of a sudden be like, I better start actually canceling some loans like I promised to do during the election, because now bankruptcy's back, and if I don't cancel some loans right now, we're going to see a filing of 10, 15, 20, 25 million people, which would overwhelm the bankruptcy courts to the point of seizure. So if bankruptcy remains gone from student loans, then the type of loan cancellation we are likely to see in the current political climate is nonsense. It's just nonsense. Like, what have we seen so far? We've seen Biden cancel a few loans, or promise to cancel a few loans for disabled veterans. And these are loans that should have been canceled many years ago. For people who were lied to by their schools. Again, loans that should have been canceled years ago. Promises to overhaul the public service loan forgiveness program. Again, these are loans that should have been canceled years ago. And, Joe Biden could cancel the number of loans that he's promised to cancel so far. He could do that like every week. And the federal loan portfolio would still grow by like $80 billion a year in interest alone. So think about that. We've got to have the threat of bankruptcy back on our side. Otherwise, we're probably going to see a bunch of nonsense. We're thrilled that people like Senator Chuck Schumer and Elizabeth Warren have embraced the call for loan cancellation by executive order. But this up to $50,000 nonsense, that could mean anything. And if the Department of Education has its way, it will mean nearly nothing for almost everybody. So S2598 becomes just incredibly important, guys. I can't overemphasize that. So if you happen to live in a state with with one or two Republican senators, I urge you strongly, and even if you don't, find a state near you that has Republican senators and do everything you can to get them to co-sponsor S2598. It will be super helpful. The other super important thing that you can do, if you want to avoid the whole bankruptcy thing in the first place, it's a small, there's a chance. There's a chance. In fact, there's a very extremely good chance that if we were to get a couple of Republican governors to stand up and say, Mr. President, enough. I'm not going to let my state be conquered and enslaved by this federal debt. Cancel the loans. If a couple Republican governors did that, I think it would create a groundswell that could very well lead to the clean death of the entire federal student loan system. And we can move on with our lives, and we can put this bad nightmare behind us. And we probably wouldn't even have to worry about bankruptcy in that case, although we still have to worry about bankruptcy. So if you live in a state with a Republican governor, or maybe even if you don't, anything that you can do to get us, like me and like a few other people maybe, in a meeting with a Republican governor's staff, I would jump at the chance to do that. We've already met with quite a few Republican governor's staff as it stands, but we would love to meet with more Republican governors' staffs, like Ron DeSantis in Florida pops into mind. Greg Abbott of Texas would be great. H.R. McMaster of South Carolina, Kristi Neem of South Dakota, John Sununu's son, whoever that is, in New Hampshire, would be great to meet with his staff. Because all those states I just mentioned, and many more, like all the states that I mentioned earlier, their people owe more in student loan debt than their entire state budget. And in some cases, they owe more in federal student loan debt alone. than their entire state budget. So we've got a very strong argument to make. But that only matters if we actually make the argument. We've got to get to the table. We've got to get in the conversation in order for that to happen. So if you live in Georgia, Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, Alabama, Missouri, Ohio, South Dakota, New Hampshire, Maryland, Virginia, it doesn't really count. We've got a Democratic governor. If you live in any of those states that I just mentioned, and probably a few more that I didn't mention, Indiana, make it your mission to get us into a conversation with the governor's staff. It doesn't have to be a big roll out the red carpet, media covered formal event. Nothing like that. It can be very informal. Nothing more than a phone call with really maybe no more than 3 people on the call. Me, you, and the governor's person. That would be great. That would be absolutely fantastic. And I will say that the governors that we've spoken with up to this point, they have been, number one, they've been shocked and surprised to learn that their people owe more than the entire state budget in student loan debt. But more than that, they've been very open to the prospect of joining together with other Republican governors. I think that's probably how it's going to happen, and making a joint call to the president to cancel these loans. Republicans are being hurt by student loans. My best estimate is that 55% of all student loan borrowers are either Republican or independent. Something like 58 or 9% are Democratic or independent too, so it kind of works both ways. But the point is, this is their base. This is a non-partisan problem. And there's no good reason for this issue to be divided up, the battle lines drawn around this partisan nonsense. Just the other day, the squad, as they say, AOC, Ilhan Omar, others, they put an ultimatum to Biden to come back with that memo that he tasked the Secretary of Education and the Department of Justice to come up with, that answers the question of whether or not he does indeed have the power to cancel federally owned student loans by executive order. He does, by the way. And this revamped public service loan forgiveness program is living proof that he has that power. So, but whatever. We want that memo to come back right. But my whole point in mentioning this is that soon as the squad does that, then all the Republicans flock to the other side of the issue. And, I'm glad they did it. I'm glad to see anybody in Congress fighting for us. I mean, we need that. Absolutely. Thrilled. But at the same time, I'm very wary of the fact that anything they do tends to have a polarizing effect. And that's a huge threat for us, guys. That's a huge danger. It just is. We cannot let this problem be lost in the partisan divide, which is what has happened, has been the reality for the past 15 or 16 years of our existence. So I don't want to let that happen. So anything you can do to reach out to a couple of Republican senators to get them to co-sponsor S2598, or to a Republican governor to get him to join other Republican governors in calling on Biden to cancel the loans, this would be massively, massively helpful to us, you, to yourself, to us, to the 45 million people in the country with student loans, and to the hundreds of millions of people who are going to follow in our footsteps. So get that done, folks. This is your battle. This is your fight. As unlikely as it may sound, this group right here, we're the reason that bankruptcy is even being talked about right now. We're the reason that bankruptcy was even brought into Elizabeth Warren's presidential agenda. We are a huge reason that student loan cancellation by executive order is now at the top of the news. I can't say, I sort of doubt that we would be talking about loan cancellation by executive order, which is a very important wrinkle, but for our petition, and but for the fact that we really blew that sucker up at a critical time during the presidential campaign. And it was only right when we were going viral all over the country in the national media that Senators Schumer and Warren embraced that call. So anyways, This group is important. These are your loans. This is your problem. What we do, you and me, on this group right now, here today, and going forward, really makes a huge difference. So I hope you will bear that in mind. With that, I'm going to sign off. I have to be brief tonight. I've got another meeting coming up here in a few minutes. But if you have any questions or comments, throw them out, and I will look at this later and happy to answer any and all questions. If you have any, obviously, if you have any comments or thoughts or bursts of creative inspiration, well, do tell. By all means, send us your ideas because we need good ideas, guys. I'm not the smartest guy around, and we have far more creative, clever people out there that we need to be inspired by, and that means you. So anyways, hang in there, guys. I'll be back on Friday. Remember to sign up for that thing tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. Pacific time at USC. Last thing I will say is if you can make a donation, it would be super helpful at this time. We survive and thrive on very little, but we can't do it on nothing. Like literally, we cannot. The lights literally will not be on for us if we don't get at least moderate donations from people, personal gifts. So please do that if you can. StudentLoanJustice.org. With that, I will wish you a great night, a Godspeed, and God bless everybody. And I'll see you on Friday, or maybe tomorrow. Actually, Thursday. It's a Zoom thing. The USC thing is a Zoom thing. You can ask questions, make comments. Okay, peace.